3 out of Durarara's 4 seasons end with Izaya getting the shit kicked out of him, and it always brings a huge smile to my face, especially because Izaya has always been my favorite character in the show. It'd be easy enough to look at him as a sort of Joker knockoff, though the most comparable version of the Joker came later than him, but in a way he's kind of the opposite. Whereas the Joker goes around creating chaos for the sake of itself as a rejection of order in concept, Izaya manufactures a carefully calculated chaos with the intentions of being recognized as, in his own way, the greatest warrior alive. Both characters rely on the world around them to follow its own rules. The Joker's plans rely more on the bureaucratic nature of a society which defers to authority figures and morality as a guiding light to predict the decisions which others will make, whereas Izaya relies more on understanding basic psychology and predicting human desires. But both of them are able to create ludicrously complicated scenarios based on the strength of their understanding of these systems and desire to use them against themselves. If you want to really see the differences in their intentions though, you need only look at their enemies and how they feel about them. The Joker ultimately loves the Batman, because no matter which decisions he makes, they will work to the Joker's benefit. If Batman continues to leave him alive, then he will continue to have the opportunity to subvert the system in his favor. But if Batman kills him, then he will have lost to him ideologically, proving that the only way to deal with the problem that he represents is to embrace chaos and work against social and moral rules with true vigilante justice, a line Batman is already writing in the first place while convincing himself that it's okay as long as he doesn't kill. Izaya, on the other hand, is hunted by Shizuo, who straight up wants him dead, and Izaya absolutely hates him, because there's nothing he can do about him. Shizuo is legitimately unpredictable because he lacks interest both in himself as an ego and in preserving social order. He is willing to destroy everything and go to any lengths to seek his own personal justice, so the only way that Izaya can deal with him is to kill him, and he's not strong enough to do it. But there's a lot more to the conflict between these two men than that of a good guy versus a bad guy, because in many ways, Izaya represents exactly what a society exists to protect, while Shizuo represents what it was built to protect us from. After all, once upon a time, if someone was physically stronger than someone else and didn't like them, they could just beat them up and take their stuff. Society was founded on the thought that the weak have something to offer to the strong which will improve their lives for the better, on the idea that a world based on the rule of war ultimately left us individually weaker. Society was meant to be an equalizer, and yet in its attempts to fairly serve as many different types of people as possible, it had to develop labyrinthine rules and social structures to manage everyone. And as the population exploded over time and human needs grew in complexity faster than those needs could be recognized and met, we found ourselves in a world which broadly does an okay job serving everyone, but a terrible job of serving any individual fully. In a world like that, all one has to do to manipulate others is to offer to fill in the gaps. Help them to fulfill whichever needs society isn't helping them with, and you can build a sub-society with its own structure within the outer shell society, which we watch Izaya do for himself while also encouraging others to make their own clubs affiliated with his, which he can then manipulate via their own internal rule structures. In other words, Izaya only has any power because society exists. He's not the strongest guy around, though he is considerably powerful and agile, but as long as everyone is playing by the rules they've set for themselves, they can't do anything about him. To defeat him, you must either defy your own best interest, or simply be sure that your own power structure is operating above him at a given moment. Durarara being a show about characters trying to come to terms with themselves and to find a place where they can operate within society, and finding it by uniting with others who embrace the things which make them unique, Izaya is the perfect villain. If the hopeful side of the series wants us to know that we can all find a place by working together, Izaya is there to remind us that any chink in the armor of our self-worth or belief in the people around us to work alongside us can be exploited to turn us against each other and sow disbelief in the system, ergo chaos. But not the kind of anarchic chaos that the Joker wants. Izaya is all about mapping and predicting chaos, recognizing that however complex the initial conditions and how they end up playing off of one another, there is a logic behind it all, and the more variables he can cause to splinter in all directions, the faster society will diverge into new subsets of rules and categories, which anyone less knowledgeable than him will be unfit to predict as well as he can. When Izaya gets punched for the first time, it's by one of the only characters who completely understands understands what he's doing and disapproves. Of anyone in the show, Simon might be one of the few above Izaya in terms of the sway that they have in affecting what happens in the city, given that he's backed by one of its most powerful organizations. But Simon is a kind, loving soul who wields this power to protect rather than to control. Because he is averse to murder, he cannot simply kill Izaya, putting him in more of a Batman-esque position by comparison. But his punch to the face is both a satisfying rejection of Izaya and a reminder to him that just because the powers above him aren't interested in snuffing him out now, they are capable of it. And if he pushes things too far, then they are eventually going to push back. Next time, Izaya gets stabbed in the streets because he simply wouldn't imagine that someone who he doesn't already register as a psycho would have the gall to stab someone in the middle of the road. Because he has to toggle so many pawns at all times and map all this chaos, he tends to make snap judgments about others' potential, and to simply ignore anyone that he doesn't think is worth the time of day to keep tabs on. It's a reminder that you can't truly have eyes everywhere unless you're looking at absolutely everyone, and his hubris makes him so overconfident that he can't even predict how there must be way more people who want him dead than he could realize. He's only able to dominate this situation once he finally does understand the person who's done this to him. Then of course there's the final glorious beatdown from his mortal enemy Shizuo, which can only come when things have gotten out of even his own arrogant hands. After all, how long can you subvert the intentions of society's rules before it figures out how to correct for you? Believing in society's systems to a fault is the most naive thing you could ever do, because it really is all just a game. But when the pieces are all put away, it's time to come back to reality. And nothing has changed about the fact that someone bigger than you can just kick your ass and take your shit if they don't care about the consequences. And a society that's honest with itself isn't going to stop that guy when they feel the same way. I could probably write a whole other video about how the otaku characters in the show represent that real-life group's greatest potential, to be the heart and soul of a perfect society, one in which people are able to be honest with themselves and live their desires while respecting and protecting the rights of others to do the same, and how they are the moral heart of a series ultimately about what society can do to the benefit of its individual members, and how the truly selfless heroes like Shizuo will inevitably take that side, and so long as there are enough of them working together to outnumber and overpower the sociopaths, there is still a chance for society to be a net positive for humanity. To think that the result would ever be otherwise is sheer arrogance. After all, humans will always work with their own best interests in mind, and if you test that will for long enough, then something's gotta give. Just like you gotta give me money on Patreon so I can keep making videos forever. Or at least until I don't want to do this anymore. Check out my big playlist for like 1,000 million videos that I've been in, and see you tomorrow.